Hey, what is up, mortals? It is SBurkeVA here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 20 of What If Deku Was the Shield Hero. I just wanted to greet you guys by saying sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. And so, we begin. Moments after Midoriya and Todoroki were called to the arena, the doors to Recovery Girl's office were flung open with a clearly worried Darthvalgaav rushing out. Without missing a beat, the Tanuki girl began to race down the hallway, her legs showing no sign of injury. In truth, it had taken the elder hero only a couple of seconds to heal it so well that no one would have ever suspected she had gotten cut there. There wasn't even so much as a scar. But despite this, Recovery Girl had insisted on having the girl rest for a bit to regain her energy while the elder woman examined her. And because of this, Darthvalgaav was now running late to see Izuku.
Wait, Missy, wait! At least take some gummies with you.
At the same time, Philo was up in the stands as she and Melty explored the stadium together. To be honest, the Filial girl found this far more fun and exciting than the fights, since all she could do was watch those. Though, since this next one did have her master in it, perhaps it would be worth watching. Maybe they could even get a closer look. Before she could bring this up to her new best friend in the whole wide world, something caught her attention. It was a man, a very skinny one at that, holding onto the railing as he looked down at the field below. Something about the man seemed familiar to her for some reason that she couldn't place a finger on, but such thoughts were put on hold as the man just randomly began coughing up huge amounts of blood. Like, the amount didn't seem humanly possible. But then again, what did she know what was humanly possible, since she had seen Mrs. Midoriya once cry so much that the tears went up to her ankles and the room was flooded. Shaking her head to pull herself from that memory, Philo noticed the man wobbling and with a great burst of speed rushed over to catch him before he fell over. As she held on to him, she got a whiff of a familiar scent that was much like the one smelt every time she transformed. Then she looked up at the man whose piercing blue eyes were looking down at her with gratitude, eyes she had seen before. "Thank you for that." Philo beamed as she helped the man stand.
No problem, All Might. My master would be very disappointed in me if I saw someone in trouble and didn't help.
All Might chuckled as he closed his eyes, scratching the back of his head as he did so. Would he now? Looks like he's... Suddenly, All Might's eyes shot wide open. His mouth opened wide, more blood spewing out as he looked down at the little winged girl who looked back at him with an innocent smile. "But I'm not... you just... how?" Philo tilted her head to the side.
Oh, was I not supposed to figure it out? Are you playing some sort of game with everyone else? If so, I'm really sorry. It's just that my master is a really big fan of yours. He has lots and lots of pictures and dolls of you all over his room. He also showed me the disc with you in it. You know, the one where you told him he was getting into this school? You're wearing the same outfit right now. Plus, you have this smell on you that's like mine when I transform.
Philo then turned around as Melty began getting closer.
Come on, Melty, come on. I want to get closer to see Master fight.
With that, the pair rushed past a still shocked All Might as the reality of the situation was still catching up with him. "Did a little girl who was only born a couple of weeks ago just figure out that I'm All Might?" Meanwhile, Izuku walked into the arena as Present Mike did the intro for both him and Todoroki. Thankfully, Midoriya was able to hear him, the blonde man's voice slightly drowning out the chorus of cheers and boos in the stadium. As for Todoroki, he paid little attention to it as he kept his cold gaze on his opponent. Izuku knew that this wouldn't be an easy match as Todoroki's quirk was insanely strong. However, that didn't mean that Izuku was without a plan or a shield that he could use. Begin! As Midnight's whip cracked, Todoroki took a step forward with his right foot, sending a wave of ice that was laced with spikes toward Izuku. An attack that came so fast that had the young shield hero not lunged to the left, he would have either been encased in or impaled by ice. Midoriya did not stop running as he kept his gaze on the dual quirk user. The half-hot, half-cold teen turned on the spot, gritting his teeth as he sent a second wave of ice to where Izuku was. One so large that it crashed right into the stadium wall, shaking it slightly with spikes so long that they could have impaled several people with room to spare. Yet once more, Todoroki missed as Izuku continued to keep to the teen's left side. Frustration seemed to mount for the icy-hot teen as he slid his right foot across the stony floor, sending forth a wide arch of ice. This would trade the raw power and deadly accuracy of his previous attacks for something more widespread, making it harder for the green-haired teen to avoid. Something that Izuku himself could see as his eyes widened.
Airstrike shield!
Izuku wasted no time as he leapt into the air before he had finished shouting the name of one of his special moves and landed on his makeshift platform. He didn't hesitate to create another airstrike shield, leaping onto it as Todoroki used his quirk to create an ice stake that shot out of the ground to pierce the first. Now on his second platform, Izuku leapt towards Todoroki, shocking not just the teen but everyone watching as his shield began to take on a new shape.
Soul Eater shield!
Gasps could be heard as Izuku's shield took on the appearance of a ghostly white face. The green gem was now placed between two red and sinister-looking eyes. Below that, the shield grinned evilly as it showed off its row of razor-sharp teeth. But Izuku didn't have any time to worry about how it looked, as his shield collided with Todoroki's face, causing the teen to stumble back a bit while Izuku's new shield activated. Its mouth opened up and seemed to inhale, sucking in something from its victim who began to feel a little drained. Rather than ponder what Midoriya had done to him, Todoroki raised a hand as he willed his ice to lay waste to the fool who was now too close to him. But when nothing happened, Todoroki's eyes widened in shock and horror as the two began backing away from each other.
Oh, I knew that any shield I got from Mr. Aizawa would be impressive, but I never expected it to be this useful. Its ability to mimic the erasure quirk when the shield is struck is nothing short of amazing. Though why it looks this way... Focus, Izuku, focus. Okay, when I got close to Todoroki, I could see frost forming on his body, meaning he's not immune to the cold. Makes sense, since he usually tries to end his training matches as quickly as possible. That means my plan was the correct one, I just need to keep dodging his ice assaults, and eventually his own quirk will be his undoing. Well, unless he can figure out how to heat himself up. Wait a minute. Todoroki's quirk is a mix of fire and ice. He could just use his left side to warm himself up, so why doesn't he?
Izuku was cut off by a new wave of ice as Todoroki recovered from the effects of the Soul Eater's shield.
Questions for later, okay.
With those rambling, panicked thoughts, Midoriya raced with all his might to the left, even getting into a roll as he nearly tripped on his own foot. Then, as his opponent prepared for another wave of ice, Izuku thought of a way that might help speed up the process of cooling down Todoroki.
Shield prison.
The forest green-haired teen watched as his opponent's eyes widened in surprise as a dome of shields surrounded him before blocking him from the rest of the world. A moment later, several dozen spikes of solid ice found their way through the crack in the barrier, a few even making their own method of escape. Yet still, the prison held firm as it kept as much of the cold inside while chilling the air around it. After a moment or two, Midnight began to carefully approach the green dome, only to suddenly back away as more ice began to shoot out of it, freeing the prisoner inside. As the shields began to vanish into nothingness, Todoroki remained standing in the middle of it all, but just barely. The recommended student was hunched over, breathing heavily as his body shook from the cold. The teen's body was almost to the point where he was turning blue with bits of ice clinging to his hair. He was approaching dangerously hypothermic. Although there's not really a safe level of hypothermia in the first place. Shakily, Todoroki moved to send even more ice at Izuku. However, the teen was moving so much slower right now, and his opponent would not allow him to further risk his own life. Without saying a word, Izuku raced toward Todoroki, sending a fist, along with the edge of his Soul Eater shield, right into the teen's gut. The shield user watched as his classmates spat out spit as the air was knocked out of his system, while the Soul Eater shield opened its mouth once more to temporarily drain Todoroki of his quirk. All of this seemed to be too much for the teen as he fell down to the ground, rolling away from the impact. But when Todoroki stopped, he didn't lie there and accept that it was over. Instead, he began to crawl back up so that he was on all fours, looking at Midoriya with seething hatred. Finally, Izuku spoke in his most calming tone in hopes that he could end this.
Todoroki, it's over. You fought well, but we both know your body can't take much more of this cold, so please just surrender.
Shut up.
If you don't give up on your own, Midnight will call the match. You're going to lose no matter what. Unless you use your left side...
Never. After that, Todoroki managed to stand with eyes filled with hate as he focused on Midoriya. As he stood there, breathing heavily, memories began to flow through him as if his life were flashing before his eyes. He could remember the blows his father had dealt to him, how he kept him separated from the rest of his siblings. He heard the strike that knocked his mother down when all she had done was beg the Flame Hero to go easier on him. He could remember the cold way he had disposed of his mother, sending her away to a mental hospital and locking her away. Then, Izuku was before him once more. I will never use that man's quirk. You're just like him, Midoriya. You're both trying so hard to get me to use that man's quirk. Now you both use women to accomplish your own selfish goals, striking at them when you get upset, all while avoiding the law. Neither of you deserves to be heroes. Izuku found himself taking a step back at that, his body going numb while the green gem in his shield began to darken. No, I take it back. You're worse than my father, because you pretended to be a decent person. You had us all fooled. Bet you were laughing it up every night. Izuku's mind reeled as he stumbled back like he had been struck. It hurt him so much to be compared to that man, even with the limited knowledge that Midoriya had of the home life of the number 2 hero. But to be called worse, was that really how Todoroki saw him? The sound of the crowd above began to boo again. The teen had no idea if they heard what Todoroki said or if it was just that they were unhappy with how things were turning out. But at that moment, Izuku didn't care. Not when the people were shouting things like, "Get him out of here!" and "false hero," as well as other things. It felt like all those words, those negative feelings that the world was hurling at him were just building this pressure that was pressing down on him. Pressure that he was buckling under. Then something inside Izuku cracked, and the gem in his shield turned red. This video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN allows you to change your IP address, making it harder to track and securing your privacy. In addition to providing safe passage through the web, you can also expand the reach of your favorite streaming services like Disney+. If you're from the United States, you won't be able to watch any of the MCU and Sony Spider-Man movies, but by switching your location to Japan, you can access them whenever you want. Check out the link in the description below to get 3 extra months when you purchase the 12-month subscription plan for $99.99. This deal is for a limited time, and thanks to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video. Now back to your regularly scheduled depression. Izuku let out a howl of pain, throwing his head back as his vision began to blur. In his mind, he could see the massive tree grid of shields he had acquired vanishing before being replaced with a few simple words. Cursed series. Red markings began to cover his body, his head being thrown back as he continued to scream while the whites of his eyes turned red. The gem on Izuku's shield seemed to catch on fire before it spread across the rest of his shield, turning it into something black and dangerous to behold. He could no longer hear the crowd, for they had gone silent as they watched in fear at what was happening before them. All the while, Todoroki watched with a slight smirk on his face. This, he believed, must be the true Midoriya. The one that attacked the general studies student, Multi. The true wickedness within him coming to light. Then, when Izuku lowered his head, Todoroki's heart sank. The look in Izuku's eyes was the same as his mother's the day she had scarred his face. That same look of horror and pain she had, just from looking at him. At seeing the face that resembled her tormentor so much. Had he inflicted that same level of pain on Izuku? It seemed so, as another cry of pain escaped from Midoriya as black armor began to form on the shield teen's arm, ripping apart his gym jacket in the process. Then a wicked curved spike began to grow out of the armor. Izuku gave Todoroki another look that he knew so well. The despair had been replaced by the same hate-filled expression he had when he looked in the mirror while thinking of his father. Then all hell broke loose. With a primal roar, Izuku lunged forward at Todoroki while flames appeared on his shield. The borderline frozen teen tried sending a wave of ice toward him, but it was slower this time, making it painfully easy to dodge. Only Izuku didn't dodge it. Instead, he just plowed right through it like it was nothing at all. The fire on his shield melting it away until it was nothing but steam. Seeing this, Todoroki managed to dodge out of the way by rolling to his side at the last minute before Izuku impaled the ground where he once stood. That didn't stop the son of the number 2 hero from worrying as he felt the heat emanating off of that weapon. I can't let that thing touch me. But that might be easier said than done. My body is so cold, I need to warm up. The bi-colored-haired teen looked up at his opponent as he rose. It seemed so alien to see Izuku like this, his face contorted with such a hateful expression. All traces of intelligence seemed to be gone, replaced with what seemed like a single-minded desire. To destroy. To burn down everything around him. He was more like a wild animal than a hero in training. The teachers would stop him, of course. It was just... I helped break you. I need to be the one to set this right, no matter the cost. With that, Todoroki used his left side. Fire beginning to form across that entire half of his body, warming him up like never before. Without thinking, flames shot out of his left hand and flew toward the berserker in hopes that it would do something. Hoping that it might at least shock Izuku out of whatever state he was in. Unfortunately, it was not to be, as Midoriya simply raised his shield to block the attack as he approached his target slowly. Again and again, Todoroki sent waves of fire and ice at Midoriya, who simply growled in annoyance. Everything was either blocked with that shield or he just powered through it like they were nothing more than minor annoyances. Feeling the pressure on him, Todoroki decided to try something else. Quickly, he pushed the right side of his body to its limit, cooling the air around him, before switching to his fire side to rapidly heat and expand the air around him. The rapid shift in temperature creating a small thermobaric explosion. A superheated blast aimed right at Midoriya that, upon impact, rocked the arena as well as parts of the stadium. Even a pro-hero like Midnight was thrown off her feet. Panting, Todoroki sank to his knees as a cloud of smoke filled the stadium floor. For a moment, he believed that he had put down the student with the highest defense in the class, hopefully just knocking him out. But such a hopeful thought ended as an armored hand reached out from the smoke to grab him by the neck. The grip tightened as Todoroki was lifted into the air so that his feet dangled slightly, barely noticing Izuku's shield was smoking slightly from the impact of the last attack. The icy-hot teen tried to claw at the armored arm as he looked into Izuku's red eyes.
Stop it, Izuku, that's enough!
Everyone watched as Izuku turned, shield aflame and ready to launch it at whoever was now heading toward him. But he stopped when he saw who it was. Raphtalia. Ignoring all rules, the Tanuki girl was running toward him with tears in her eyes. And behind her was Philo in her human/angel form. Whether it was just seeing them like this or the sudden realization of what he might have done to them seemed to snap Midoriya out of his rage, the black armor on his arm vanishing as he released Todoroki. As his shield returned to its normal, silver state, and the red in his eyes left, a look of horror fell upon him. With a sickened look, Midoriya raced out of the arena where he then began to empty his stomach. It was over. Midoriya was out of bounds and he had lost.
He killed my Nomu. Look at that, Master.
Shigaraki laughed, kicking his feet about wildly as he sat in his seat within the dirty bar that served as his headquarters. Glee filled his eyes as he looked at the many different screens before him, his smile sickening to behold. The main one showed the shield brat being helped out of the arena, head held low as the many people in the crowd began to call him a villain once more. He would really have to thank that Malty girl when she came by the bar again. Had it not been for her constant whisper campaigns and live interviews, he doubted that the crowd would have reacted this way. It was like his master had always said, hearts are so easily swayed. Now the scene was having a domino effect as evidenced by the images on the other screens. News outlets and opinion show hosts were already tearing into the Midoriya brat, calling him an out-of-control monster that needed to be kicked out of the school.
This is just so wonderful. The first act of my plan is going so well. Just wait till we get to the final stage. When that day comes, he'll be finished.
Yes, I am happy for you, Tomura.
Shigaraki's ears perked at that, smiling, fading as he turned to look at the screen where his master's voice had come from. Something about the tone seemed a little off. He had known his master for years and could easily pick out his mood even through the system, but this time it was rather hard. Is that worrying?
Is something wrong, Sensei?
Oh, no. Nothing is wrong, per se. It's just that I have encountered that quirk before when I was trying to take it for my own, as well as the other legendary weapons, and that shield never behaved like that. Perhaps it is changing. Well, no matter, in the end I am pleased with your motivation. Continue as you please, for I sense that the path you are on will bring forth the downfall of not just that young man, but the entire school as well. Perhaps even All Might.
Later, as the sun began to set over the horizon, Izuku sat by himself within the stadium stands with his head lowered. The first day of the sports festival had ended hours ago with him missing the closing ceremony altogether. Partly because Recovery Girl wanted to make sure he was alright, dragging out all her tests since she didn't want him to go back into that environment. Well, Izuku didn't really fight her on that since he also didn't want that. Right now, he just couldn't face the looks he knew he was going to receive. The fear, the hatred, all adding to the shame he was already feeling. He didn't leave the medical office until sometime after he was sure everyone had left. The green hero slowly made his way toward the stadium, moving almost as if in a trance or a zombie-like state, before finding a random seat and taking it. There he sat with his head hung low as his match repeated in his head in what felt like an endless loop within the silence. At one point, he lifted his head, finding that All Might was walking up the steps and pausing to look at him. But the pro-hero quickly looked away, scratching the back of his head before moving on. Yeah, it made sense that someone like All Might would want to keep their distance from him. "Hello there, little hero." Izuku didn't jump at the sudden voice, merely lifting his head slightly and casting a glance at Midnight as she sat next to him. "So this is where you've been? I've been looking all over the place for you. Not just me, but all of your friends. Some of them were ready to do some very naughty things in order to find you." Then an arm draped over Izuku's shoulders, causing him to flinch this time. The teen then gulped as he looked over at the older woman, seeing that her expression was not the playful one she normally had, nor was it the fierce one he saw that night when they first met. This time, all he could see was compassion and worry, as their eyes locked. It was enough for a lump to form in his throat. "How are you? Really?" With that, Izuku felt another emotional dam breaking within him, so when he spoke, his words were choked with sobs. I don't know. I really don't know anymore. I messed up so bad. I thought I could handle it all. I really did. But I messed up, and I don't know how to fix this. I could have killed Todoroki. I could have hurt Raphtalia and Philo. Everyone saw it. Everyone hates me. How can I be a hero who saves people with a smile on my face when I don't even feel like a hero? They all think I'm a monster. A villain. No better. Maybe they're right. I'm scared. Izuku clutched onto Midnight, the way a frightened child clings to his parents after a bad dream, tears pouring freely down his face. All the while, Midnight gently stroked his curly green locks in a reassuring manner, never saying a word as her student let out all the things that he had been keeping inside. It was only when he had finished that she pulled away from him before cupping his chin with one hand so that he had to look her in the eyes. "I'm not gonna lie to you, little hero. Yes, things look bad for you right now, but I believe that you can pull yourself out of this. Just like how you saved yourself in that little cutie pie all those years ago." But what if I can't? "I don't think I can do it on my own." Midnight smiled. "Who said you would? You still have your friends, don't you?" "Izuku!" As if right on cue, Midnight let go of Midoriya's chin so that he could turn to see Raphtalia racing toward him, jumping over the stadium seats at a frantic pace. And she wasn't alone, as a worried Philo was right behind her. Very soon, she was right in front of him with both hands on his shoulders. "I was so worried about you. You weren't there when All Might was handing out the medals and no one would tell me where you were. I checked Recovery Girl's office, but she said you had left, so why?" Izuku's question was spoken softly, almost like a whisper, but it silenced Raphtalia as if he had screamed it at the top of his lungs. "What? Why did you come looking for me? Aren't you scared, Raphtalia? I got so angry I was barely in control of myself back there. I could have killed Todoroki. I could have attacked you or Philo. You should be terrified of me. You should hate me like everyone else does." For a moment, Izuku watched as Raphtalia looked at him with a blank expression. Then slowly, her expression grew soft while an understanding smile appeared on her lips. Slowly, whatever distance they had from each other vanished as she embraced Izuku in a hug, tears falling down his face anew. "I could never hate you, Izuku. Nor could I be afraid of you. You might have slipped up today, made a mistake, but that's okay. Because to me, you're the world's greatest hero." Izuku trembled at those words, wanting to tell her that it was impossible for him to be that. Not after what he'd done today. But the soft, honest tone that she spoke with silenced the words before they could even form. "You saved me that night in the warehouse, not just getting me out of there, but pulling me out of the darkness so that I could smile again. You gave me hope when I had none, and even when it looked like that hope was going to be taken away, you stood there willing to take on more pain for me. That's why you will always be the greatest hero in my eyes. I don't care what everyone else says. Even if the whole world turns on you telling me that you are a villain, I'll stand up and shout from the top of my lungs that they are wrong. So please, let me be your sword, so that I can cut through your sorrow. Let me help my hero." That's when Izuku felt someone else holding him, hugging him by the waist. It was Philo.
I feel the same way, Master. You were the first person I saw when I hatched. You've taken care of me, gave me this dress, and let me race down the streets. Everything I love in this world comes from you. I love you a whole bunch, and I'm gonna eat up all those bad feelings until they don't bother you anymore.
For a moment, Izuku stayed in this embrace. Soon, others who had been looking for him showed up, people like Kirishima, Sue, and Uraraka. They all came, clearly worried about him, still trusting him. And for right now, that was more than enough. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in all this information thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, I'd like to thank our patrons: BD Flames, Ethan Davis, Terry Chills, Shifter Meals, Adam Zagel, Zill, XAV Beat 03, and Joshua Phelps. Secondly, I'd also like to thank all of our YouTube members: Toei Acosta, Rob the King, Sith Lord 906, CF2364, and Knuckles, Rimuo Tempest, Angel Juarez, Donald C. Stewart, Bryant Greer, and Demonized Fox. Thirdly, if you're in the mood for some great storytelling, We the Celestials has you covered. Our We the Celestials, My Hero Academia, and Naruto What If channels retell the story of their namesake anime, with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. Fourthly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details can be found in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, I'd like to extend an invitation to join the team. The only caveat is that we only accept members from 16 years old and up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interests by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. We're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video, so thank you all for watching, and have a great day.